Welcome to the Garage Network podcast. Join us and the occasional special guest as we discuss everything automotive, from fixing cars as a technician, owning an automotive workshop or business, overall work-life balance, and even the occasional laugh. In this episode of TGN Talks, we were joined by John Bright, who is the General Manager of Bosch Automotive Service Solutions. We discussed some hurdles that are coming up in our industry regarding access to information and also systems themselves, and what Bosch is doing to try and overcome those hurdles.
Well, welcome to TGN Tech Talks, and we have John Bright from Bosch Automotive Service Solutions, the General Manager. So welcome, John.
Thanks, guys. I'm really pleased to be here and to have a chat. So, as I said before, I was always looking at all the other podcasts, wondering, maybe one day I'm up in the top left, bottom right, wherever it is in the cam. So, looking forward to today's chat.
Well, you've made it to the big time when you've joined our podcast. So,
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You get to get a hold of our 3 subscribers, and I'm pretty sure it's the same person under 3 different names.
Yeah.
You, me and Jeff, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, welcome, John. Welcome. We've got a few things to chat about. We're going to chat about
secure gateways, which is always
secure
hot.
gateways.
Secure gateways is always a super hot topic on the Garage Network all the time for the last few months. I reckon it's been getting a lot of traction. Some people maybe a little bit confused as to what exactly it is and how they gain. Why is my scan tool not working? Sort of conversations. I think we're going to discuss a little bit about the J2534, how that all operates and works, and a bit about what connected repair is.
Yeah, sounds great. I'm looking forward to getting into that. So, lead on if you want to have any questions.
I'll hit you hard. I'll hit you hard because
go on. I'm looking for good challenge.
Yeah, because I think secure gateways, right? So we have on our network, a lot of the times you'll get some guys commenting, I've got this U-Butte, very expensive scan tool, and, when it comes to these certain vehicles, especially after a certain age, it doesn't work. Can't reset a service light. I can't even speak to a module. Is the car broken? Why is there no communication? Why can't
I was going to say you can scan it, you can receive the codes, but you can't turn any of the lights out. You can't read the service
functions.
Light. Can't do anything. There's lots of stuff.
Yeah, and then you got them sort of either blaming the scan tool really heavily or blaming the car really heavily because their brand new scan tool is being promised to do the world. He's not doing it. Now, I think that's where secure gateway comes into it. What do you reckon, John?
You're right, and I think I've had a look at a few comments on the TGN Facebook page, and I can see the frustration. I think there's maybe some misconceptions as well. So maybe I'll just share from my perspective and my understanding. What is a secure gateway, and how did that all come about? Is that the OEMs got together and decide, hey, we're going to make life difficult, or is there something else? So. Maybe let me start off with what is a secure gateway. So secure gateway, I guess we would class that as a generic term for protected systems. So a secure gateway could be an algorithm protecting a system. It could be a certificate-based authentication. It could be something called a seed and key logic. But basically, it's a gated system that an OEM has implemented in their vehicle architecture. And you're right that many of late model vehicles have, let's call it, secure gateway fitted to those vehicles. I saw some comments, the OEMs are just making that hard. Well, it's not actually the OEMs. So if you go online and you look up secure gateway, you'll find something that originated under the United Nations, actually. So back a few years ago, the United Nations made an amendment. It was around cybersecurity. And the requirement was that for the OEMs, specifically in Europe, had to implement certain measures in their vehicle architecture. And that happens to be the secure gateway or a derivative of what I just mentioned. So What does that mean? It means in the future that you're probably going to find that nearly every vehicle manufacturer has some form of secure gateway that's built into their vehicle architecture. And the reasons for that, I guess if you go a few years from now, and a lot of politicians and other people are planning what happens in the late 2030s, and you probably heard things like, cars are going to be driving around by themselves, etc. I don't know if we're going to see that this decade, but you're probably going to find that we will have some vehicles on the road, and definitely they're already out in some countries where they call this SAE level 3. So you may have heard of different levels of autonomous driving. At the moment, most of the systems are SAE level 1 or 2, mainly level 2. That means that the driver is still in charge of control of the vehicle. When you go to this SAE level 3, which is like a highway pilot, the car can change lanes by itself. So it can see there's a car beside me. I can safely, change lanes, speed up, slow down, etc. You certainly don't want to have someone having some unauthorized access to that vehicle, or someone hack it while the vehicle's in control and the driver's not. And I guess that's one of the key reasons for some of those changes that were implemented some years ago in preparation for the future. So that's a little bit about, I guess, the origins of secure gateway as I understand it. Anyone who wants to look, there's lots on the internet you can look into. I guess the challenge then comes, so for a workshop, when you get one of these vehicles, what do you do? How do you unlock it? Normally, the way to do that is either with the OE scan tool, or some OEMs, you have to go into their portal, you have to register, you have to pay some money, and you can then gain access to that gated system. As you can imagine, across all the OEMs, you don't want to be doing that one by one, because it gets pretty expensive, and you've got to remember your password and pay your money every time. That's a lot of pain. So I guess at Bosch, we implemented a solution called SDA, which is Secure Diagnostic Access. So in our ESI Tronic, you sign up once, and if a vehicle has that fitted and we have the ability to unlock it, you have one click and basically you can unlock that vehicle. There's no additional cost. There's no portal you have to go to. There's one sign in, and that's it. So the idea is that we have one solution for all vehicle manufacturers.
Yeah, that's a function that I found really helpful on our KTS, anyways. Like you said, especially with things like your Jeeps and some of the Euro cars as well, where something as basic as a service reset. Like for me, my fear is always, getting a car in for something as simple as a service, and then having to tell the customer that, ignore that light. That stresses me out, right? I think that was one of the big, one of the benefits of having that in the arsenal, I believe. Mike, I think you were the one that actually put me onto. I think we had a chat early on when you had your first Bosch. You're like, it's the only one that resets Jeeps. It's the only one. There's nothing else.
No, it was Land Rover. I had a Land Rover.
Was it? Yeah.
There's Land Rover. There's heaps. No, but that wasn't a secure gateway. That was just the functionality of the tool. I had a customer came in and said, "Oh, no mechanic. I've been to 5 mechanics. No one can turn out that light." Plugged in the KTS, turned the light out like that. It was the best. And she went, "You got it out?" I went, "Yeah, just reset your service light." I mean, admittedly, I've got 13 other scan tools in the shop. I got to the Bosch last, but it was I tried everything else. I'm going to try the Bosch now. And I was going through doing everything, and it was one of those things that, but having that little green man and being able to log, which is that little logo in EasyTronic, and have it being logged in and getting access to do things, far outweigh like the any Volvos. First thing we go to, green man, access done. And there's not much it doesn't do. It really, and if it doesn't, I lodged the case the other day, John. You'll see it. There was a Maserati that wasn't in there. So
Damn.
John. There goes half.
Have to put that on the backlog.
There goes half my car park. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it was. Well, I've got 4 of them, and the Bosch works on 3, but the latest one it just didn't work on. It just wouldn't let me get access. So,
And John, they're just his personal cars, so forget the customers' cars.
Yeah. And hey guys, I have to also say something for full disclosure, because it sounds great. We've got this SDA and it does everything. Well, it's not necessarily that easy. I wish the world was that easy. So in Australia today, we have like the VAG group. We can unlock those vehicles. We can unlock Mercedes. We can unlock Stellantis or Fiat Chrysler group vehicles, Porsche. So we've got a pretty good starting point. Some, but this is what the point I'm going to get to, Mike. If you've got our Easy, there's an update that just came out, and it's got Hyundai and Kia, right? Just launched Secure Gateway, and if you see in writing, it says Europe only. We've also launched Ford, Renault, and you might have seen that's also Europe only. And the challenge is that having a secure gateway doesn't mean to say that in every part of the world, everyone gets access to that. And you think, well, why is that? What Bosch haven't just clicked the button and said Australia's going to miss out? Well, I guess there are some other complications in the back end, because to have those systems, you have to work very closely with the vehicle manufacturers. And not always is it just worldwide and everything's beautiful. There can be other challenges that may take a little bit longer. And I guess that was one of the frustrating things when it comes to the right to repair. And I think it's a great job of where we got to with the right to repair. But one of the challenges there is, I guess, for the tool manufacturers, we weren't part of the scheme, so we kind of missed out on getting access to that to build into the aftermarket scan tool. And I think while that's important is, for an OEM dealer, they use their one scan tool every day, all day on their brand. That's easy. For an independent, you don't know what vehicle you're going to turn up next. So okay, Mike, you've got 13 tools, but ideally you want to have one tool that can do all of those vehicles. And that's the part that's, I guess, quite challenging for the aftermarket scan tool providers, is that we don't automatically get access to that data the same as our customers, which are the repairers. So, some other challenges there in the background.
Now, may I dare say, just to put it easy to the topic, is that where the J2534 technically should have fallen into that gap to help become that sort of go-to scan tool? If you've got that pass-through device, you can use it as a OE tool. Was that sort of a plan with that J235?
No. Well, yes and no. If we get onto J2534, I guess that's a generic, and people kind of go, that's typically known as your pass-through device. I think there's also a misconception there that, this OEM's got J2534. I can do everything, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not the case on every OEM. Some OEMs actually, the J2534 device, like our KTS 560, can nearly do everything the OE VCI can do on certain vehicle manufacturers. So like an American one, like Ford, for example. So Ford actually, they say, well, you can also use the Bosch KTS 560, or Mitsubishi also say you can use the KTS 560. But there are some OEMs where if you go into a little bit of detail, what can an aftermarket VCI with J2534 do, and what can't it do compared to the OE VCI? And depending on the OEM, there are many things that you can't do with the generic J2534, unfortunately. So I guess that's also another challenge in the whole automotive industry, is that we don't have a standard or a one VCI that is identical in the capabilities of an OE VCI.
John, do you think that the minister still has the ability to tweak the legislation? Do you think there's anything we can work on? I mean, I know you were working pretty closely with all of those on that with that legislation in the lead up to all of that. Do you think there's anything that can change in the future with ASRA and with the minister? Do you think we can? I mean, I don't know. You're probably closer to it with all the tool meetings that have been going on more recently with them.
Look, a little bit of an insight. I think there is some things that can be done, and I think that, in my view, it's got to be done in cooperation with the OEMs. And you might go, gee, how are you gonna do that? I would say genuinely, many of the OEMs that I've spoken to, I think would be quite cooperative in having an approach on how we solve some of these problems together. So I think there is definitely some things that can be done. But that I think industry needs to come together and find the right path going forward. And it's not just as simple as we say J2534. You've got to have that, and it's going to solve everything, because unfortunately for certain OEMs, it's not that easy. It's just not that easy.
Costa, I think you'll agree. We've spoken about this before. I think there's a few different. There's room for your generic scan tool. There's room, obviously, with secure gateway access.
Yeah.
There's room for J2534, and there's also a space and they're all three different segments of your diagnostic pathway, or depending on what you want to do to the vehicle. Yeah. There's also room and a space for having the genuine pass-through device or genuine the hardware
things,
to do certain things, because and I think there's as an industry, we need to understand the limitations of. We know our limitations of what we can do with this generic scan tool. We know I guess no one really knows the limitations of what we can do with J2534. We haven't really even been able to use it, because I don't think the legislation really. And I think what Costa was alluding to is the legislation didn't really pick up on anything with J2534. Some of the manufacturers are just forcing us to buy their hardware or lease their hardware for 12 months. So you've got this, which is not economic. I mean, you said before, I've got 13 scan tools. I can tell you, with 13 subscriptions, I would rather have one.
You don't say. Yeah.
I would rather have one, but I think that. As a group, for us, it's a great, and to educate people, anyone that's listening, I think that there definitely is room for that J2534 and the ability to buy OE level software for 1 hour, 1 day, and knowing your limitations, and not necessarily maybe not programming something, maybe programming something that that's within the boundaries of what you're able to do with J2534. And if you need to step up further, there might be an opportunity to lease or to buy genuine hardware if you've got enough of those vehicles coming in. But like you say, I've got 4,000 cars in my database, or whatever it might be, 3,800 cars, or thereabouts, and they're a mix of everything, and some of that's not practical for us to lease a tool for 12 months for $80 a week, and I might only see one of them a week, or maybe some weeks none of them, so it doesn't work.
Well, Mike, I'll ask you a question which I probably know the answer to anyways. Have you've had success with using your J2534 as a programming device through genuine?
Yes. Yeah, through genuine portals, and I'm waiting for some of those manufacturers on their Australian portals to finish updating their website so that we have access hourly, daily, or 24 hourly. One of them specifically that made me ring John, actually, or told me that they were ringing Bosch. A relation of Fords.
I think might have got the wrong phone number in that one. But anyway, we won't go there. I think that the way I look at it, guys, is that, from a really pragmatic viewpoint, that I think that the OE software has a certain place where you're going to have to use that for certain things. But I guess for any independent repairer, your core part of your business, you want to do the majority with your generic scan tool. Because that's, with your service reset, or you can look at some actual values, you want do some stuff. You need to be able to have all of that functionality. And it's only I would say the high end things where you need to, connect to the OEM server for coding or programming. That's where you need that. And I think the fundamental is if industry could come together, how we solve the 90% of the workshop requirements. I think that would be a big win for industry. And I think that for the last 10%, I think there's different ways you can also solve that without having, to get the OE software and go through that process, because I think that can be a bit of a scary exercise. On the face value, it looks like it's easy, but Costa, I hear you were complaining the other day about BMW.
Ask me how it's going.
Yeah, how's it going? How's your BMW?
How's your stuff?
So after downloading it for the, I want to say 7th time, and it being ready to upload, it once again did what it's been doing every time, which is at the end of upload, loading itself and saying that it's trash. So that was on Monday. I now have put it in the corner of the workshop, very close to a bucket of fuel, and I'm trying to decide whether I try again or drop it in the bucket of fuel.
I'll buy it off you. I'll buy it off you for $300.
I would never do such a bad thing to a friend of mine.
So I'll
get it working. I will get it working. I promise I will get it working.
When I listened to your last podcast, I had to smile, and it wasn't a malicious smile. And I thought there's probably a couple of things that Costa just doesn't know. So I'll let you guys in on a bit of a secret that, probably years and years ago in dealer land of different OEMs, they probably faced different challenge or similar challenges. And they ended up solving that. So if you would go to an OEM today and you went to a dealer, he hasn't got the apprentice going, let's just load that software and hope that it all goes. And, I've got a bit of a problem. What do I do? No, the OEMs have a different approach where they have a standard piece of hardware, and there is an image which locks that computer down. All of the software that's put on there is tested. It all plays nicely with the other pieces on there. There's no YouTube videos going to your favorite entertainment site or a couple of other apps you might have on there. No, there's none of that. And I guess the reason for that is, and you probably know that or heard that, sometimes there can be pieces of software that don't play nicely. Or, there's one OEM, can you believe it, that their software is matched to the BIOS of a specific model of laptop. And I guess there's the reason for testing is sometimes software, and I'm not pointing at any OEM, but just in general, sometimes can be challenging to get that working. You've got different device drivers and all sorts of things can be tricky. So I guess that's another challenge. You think, okay, J2534, I've got that software, it's all going to be sweet. Yeah, could be many challenges that you face. And I also heard you talking, Costa, I think it might have been Jeff talking about, when you program a module on a BMW, it doesn't just do one, it goes around the whole vehicle.
Yeah, it wants to do the whole 36-hour upload.
Yeah. And I guess, then there's some other challenges that might come. How's your internet connection? And what happens if you've got you're on the outskirts of Sydney in a bit of an old dodgy building, and that every now and then the internet cuts out. That might not be too good if you're programming your BMW, and
absolutely,
especially if it's connected back to a back-end server, that happens. So I think there's a lot of challenges when you get into that programming space. And of course, you guys are, probably the high-end guys in the industry. But for some other workshops, I think they might also find that quite daunting or even scary. Do I have a punt and see what happens? Or because it can end up costing you a huge amount of time, or even worse, you brick something. And I think that's also another challenge, that it's just not so easy for those more advanced diagnostic processes. So that's a challenge. And, I guess for us, that's one area that we are looking at, how we solve those solutions for the industry. So, watch that. Watch the space. Maybe there might be some stuff coming along in the near future.
Yeah, because I can tell you, we've got fibre to the building, and that wasn't cheap.
Yeah,
There was a lot of arguing with Telstra, and they had to pick up most of the bill because we had problems. So, that's
you know what? I think that's a challenge. That's actually a challenge a lot of people don't think about. Like, it's all fine and dandy to have all the gear and all the idea. But at the end of the day, if the infrastructure is also a restriction as well, that's a variable that you may not have to, power goes out. Oops.
Yeah.
There goes 38 modules.
Yeah. I think it's also another factor, that, as I said before, if you're the OEM dealer and you're working on that brand all day, every day, it's like any piece of software. You learn how to drive that. You become experienced by doing.
100%.
You're an independent workshop. You got brand A in today, brand B in tomorrow, and you go, I got to get the OE software. Gee, how do I navigate around that damn thing? So
First,
you can
where's my password?
Yeah, where's my password?
Which password was this?
Yeah. Where do you log in? It looks completely different to the other one, and none of those programs look nice and flashy like your Bosch tool with your Snap-on or your Autel. They're not easy to navigate. Yeah. They're quite clunky.
But I hear you've got all your passwords written down on the outside of your computer, Mike. So you'll be sweet. Just look on the front cover. Hopefully, no one takes away the sticky note.
So they're all on the front of each individual laptop. Or
if you see me taking photos when I'm at your workshop next, don't ask any questions, eh?
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think lots of challenges, and I guess that's for Bosch, it's one of the things that's why we have solutions in our name, is to look at those industry problems and see what sort of solutions we can come up with. Not always, but certainly we love a challenge. And as I said, hopefully in the near future we can come up with some good things. But certainly a big part to play is industry and how we solve some of those gaps. I think that's a really important thing, but it needs a different level of conversation. It's not just an aftermarket conversation, in my opinion. It also has to be done with the OEMs. I think everyone has a vested interest. The OEMs have to comply with the law, and how to do that in the simplest, easiest, lowest cost way. I think everyone has a vested interest in that. So I also think that, after a few years ago, there's a bit of saber rattling on both sides. I think the maturity is completely changed now. I think everyone's getting on with that, and but it's acknowledged that we've got some challenges, and I think if we can, as industry, have that conversation, I'm pretty sure that we can make that workable as a really good solution for everyone.
I really feel like you've got a solution up your sleeve, John. Do you have?
We've got some ideas.
Something burning?
Yeah, I haven't had enough beers to slip that one out.
Damn.
Costa, but,
you know what? You got to give me some points for trying, right?
Well, I'm kind of just giving you a segue maybe into a later podcast, and Ian might have some news for you.
A bit of a teaser.
We'll just let us put a placeholder on that one.
Yeah, excellent.
I think that I think a lot of them seem to be cut. We drag them kicking and screaming to the OEMs to this table, and I think a lot of them are now starting to realise that they could make money out of it. I think the B2B stuff that Mercedes-Benz have done, I was really blown away by that. And I was telling the guys on the Wednesday Night Live how you can now order parts. You don't have to worry about ringing, and you can order parts directly off their portal. I reckon it'll be a game changer. Like if we can order parts that easy, and you're not on the phone for 20 minutes waiting for someone at Sutton's to pick up, you're not later. Don't worry about it. But you're not waiting for someone to pick up. But it'll make life heaps easier. Like I think we'll buy more parts.
100%. I'll tell you right now, if my ability to purchase a lot of genuine parts didn't consist of up to an hour on the phone, I almost, do you know that I've actually put jobs when they wanted to say genuine stuff, I'm sorry, I can't do genuine for you, purely based on the process of ordering parts, which is ridiculous. Like I'm actually saying no to a job because they want a genuine part. I'm just not willing to go through the process of ordering a genuine part. It takes too long. Yeah. That's insane, isn't it?
So Costa, any OEM parts manager that's listening to this podcast, that's music to their ears. And I guess, when you talk about the service information. That there's no from the service perspective of an OEM. And I want to speak on their behalf, just my opinion. Is they're not sitting there going, "Ooh, I can sell $25. Ooh, maybe a year subscription for $1,000. That's pretty exciting." They have so many challenges for their own brand, their own network of dealers, and all of the technical challenges that they have. That's probably not top of mind that I'm going to make some money out of selling some software. So. And, there's a compliance aspect, which is probably the more important part. And again, as I said, from their perspective, it's how do we fulfill that requirement as simple and easy as possible? And certainly having some commonality across the industry certainly helps everybody. Coming to the parts question, I'm sure that's a completely different equation. And as I said, would be music to any OEM parts manager, national parts manager. Your phone might be ringing hot, Costa, if they listen to this podcast.
Probably not, John.
I think they're too busy. They seem to be less and less, and we get driven to like I said, like there's 19 brands at Sutton's. I think there's something similar at Peter Warren here in Sydney, and a lot of they're the only place you can go. They're the only parts that, like a lot of them are, like a lot of the smaller guys are all getting pushed out of the market. But obviously, if you get the ability to be able to order those things online, that will change. That'll be a complete game changer.
I do agree.
To be able to do that, and if they are listening, I think that's something that Mercedes-Benz is just kicked the ball way out of the park there. I reckon that's just that'll be a game changer for us. That's how we go about it.
I think especially now, I think most workshops that I speak to anyways, even their aftermarket parts, I want to say 90% of their purchases are done through a computer. Like
100% for us, 100%.
Yeah, same with us. The only time might be a call if it's a 000 in DC and 0 anywhere, just to see where it is. But I'm short of that, lucky to make a couple of calls a day. The more those calls are, where is it, rather than I want it. Because I already know that I want it. I've seen the price. I know where it is. And why is it taking so long is normally the only call that I give. So I think we're quite accustomed to ordering online.
Yeah.
If they follow suit, I think we'll be pretty happy.
And, just out of curiosity, so, for what's the sort of things that you'd order genuine for? I can't imagine it's going to be wiper blades and spark plugs.
No, it's going to be
a light, but is
actually some wipers? I'm going to say some wipers. Yeah, some wipers are. Some of them the Bosch ones don't fit.
Okay.
For me, it'll be things like switches, solenoids, things that are very specific to the model, or even things like, I'll give you an example. I had one that wanted genuine Volkswagen pads. Okay, cool. But actually, Volkswagen's actually all right. Like we order them and go, but then get a Holden Trax that comes in that wants genuine pads and rotors. It's like, okay, that's fine. We'll get you genuine, but then you're waiting an hour on the phone. Yeah. 2 days by the time it's shipped out of Sydney branch, even though we're in Sydney. Is it worth the hassle? But if it was a simple process, no problem.
So you could end up being a consultant for the OEM parts industry by your insider knowledge. You could unlock the whole secret for the aftermarket workshops.
I'm more than happy to make that handshake, mate. We'll get.
We buy a lot of genuine parts, John. So, like I can tell you, today was an ignition barrel, a seatbelt buckle, they're very very
door lock actuators, all these sort of stuff that is very specific to model
stuff. Yeah. The Mercedes-Benz thermostat housing, water pump. Some of those things are not available aftermarket, or they're just not, what else? And I mean, even some of them are not available, like from genuine. Like we've got some stuff out of Japan at the moment. We luckily fixed it. We found one at a wrecker, but it was an SRS module for a Honda CRV, and it was 12 months. It's been over a year. The guy's car can't be registered. It was really not a particularly nice, not good for the customer. You feel really sorry for a lot of these people.
Yeah. Supply chain since COVID, they're still still certain challenges in certain products, that's for sure.
Yes.
Good thing is, I think just like you were saying before, I think it's all about finding that solution, which I think as in whole as an industry, we're pretty good at that. As working a solution out for the end user, which is generally the customer. I guess with Bosch, probably we're the customer, I guess, in certain aspects as well. So I think they do a pretty good job at making sure that we have a solution, especially with the one that you guys are working on for SDA and the ones that you're not willing to share, even though we've offered you beer.
I gave you some manufacturers.
You did.
There'll be more in the future. We'll keep you up to date.
So is that the plan? So is the plan to try and get more manufacturers on board with that? Because it does make life easier. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. So, if you look in the market today, in addition to those manufacturers, so if you get any of the latest Subarus, they've got a secure gateway. Mitsubishi, also secure gateway. The big one is the latest Ford Ranger and Everest. That is basically every system is locked down. So, you probably don't see too much of those in your workshop at the moment, but a couple of years from now, big volume vehicles, that will be a big challenge in the near future. So, but it's just a couple. There's a whole swath of new models that will come out, especially also Chinese ones. So, it's going to be a big change for the industry in the future.
And again, I think that the biggest thing for me in my business anyway is knowing the fact that we need them for basic stuff, for things that is our bread and butter work. I know that I've spoken to a few guys, they're like, it's not going to affect us. We don't need to know about that stuff. We just do service work, repair work. Well, yes, it's a problem. I can guarantee you there is not one customer that is happy when you tell them that, ignore the service light. Or a diesel where you've done a service, but you can't do a oil quality relearn because so then now it's not DPF regenning, and then so you can't regen it either because you've got no access to anything. Like it becomes a trickle-on effect.
I think that post the other day, really, people don't realise you just can't command anything. You can read, or you can do your scan tool becomes a read-only tool. It can't command. It can't do anything. It has no functionality. It's going back to back into the 90s.
OBD reader.
You say when I was refereeing Jesus' soccer match, as you would say, because I'm old.
Yeah, I was already 35 at that time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, going back to the 90s where we just couldn't do anything with it. You'd be like, how do we turn these service lights out in these BMWs? Like.
Bridge the wire. I actually remember you had to bridge the wire on those big connectors, those big round connectors. Yeah.
Well, I guess, and you mentioned BMW and, that's one of your favorite models, Costa, but I think there that, the secure gateway, yes, they will have secure gateway as well, but there's another challenge there for, I would say, connected vehicles where, I don't know if you've seen on the BMW, I've got a BMW X5, but the automated or connected vehicle notification. So my one pings me and goes, ding, time for service. So it's got its algorithm that apparently calculates the oil viscosity and aging and all that sort of stuff. And you get on the screen, would you like to book into your closest dealer? Click here. And then about 5 minutes later, you should get a phone call from them. So, we've got a spot next week.
It's so clever.
So I think that's part of this telematics, which was also excluded from the right to repair. And I think that technology, you'll see more and more of that in the future. And that will become very important for, I think, also for the consumer and for industry, that the consumer has an option. So, I got a notification. Great. My vehicle's told me that. But I've got my favorite mechanic. I want them to call me and say, hey, I've got a spot next week. And, I'm sure the dealer will call me and then I can decide where I want to go. So I think that will be a very important part. Again, unfortunately, the telematics part is a broad brush of everything. But certain things like this connected vehicle functionality on maintenance, or there's a fault, I think that, for industry, there needs to be the ability that independents also get that access, and for consumers that they have a choice. It just so happens in Europe, and there's a Bosch media article that we actually have a pilot with BMW. It's called FNOS, so First Notification of Service, where actually as an independent workshop, you can get that notification of, a fault or service, and the consumer can, has that option if I want to get an independent repair or the OEM. So I think there are solutions and there's standards, but in Australia, that's not there. And if you look at new vehicles out there's more and more manufacturers that are implementing connected vehicle functionality.
That's fantastic. That's like push notifications to push the customers towards you. How do we get that?
It's fantastic it's fantastic if you've got access to it, right? And
I think that this comes back to the topics in that were discussed as part of that whole right to repair. And there's it's a very complex topic that we're talking about, and I think that in all due respect to getting across the line, which is brilliant, I think sometimes the devil is in the detail, and you've got to really understand some of the technologies and how they work and how it relates to consumers and workshops, and how do we actually have a solution that everyone can participate in that. That's fair and even. And for sure, the OEMs, they have a lot of money invested in that, and I'm sure that that's not something that just comes for free, but at the moment that's pretty much a closed solution. So that's another challenge, not just to demotivate anybody, but these technical challenges, that's just technology, and how the world evolves. I think it's important that industry understands that. And
I think we're lucky though. This legislation has the ability to evolve. They knew that was going to be a moving goalpost, and I think that was part of the minister having some ability to have some flexibility. So it would be nice to see that sort of happen, but. From my understanding, that was the idea of that. But, obviously we're in, again, our industry, it hasn't stopped evolving since my grandfather's day. We basically went from horse and cart to a bloody mechanical horse and cart. And it just hasn't stopped evolving for over 100 years. So, I mean,
I think the good thing is that after cost is plugged for the OE parts, that might be just over the line automatically that, hey, sign up, buy my parts, and hey, I'll give you everything. You never know.
Makes sense.
So I guess at the end of the day, we're all in business for commercial reasons, and we also have customers. And I guess for a vehicle manufacturer, they have a customer of a vehicle that whether the customer decides later on to go somewhere else to get it serviced, at the end of the day, you'd be wanting to look after your brand reputation, and at the end of the day, you still want to make a coin, but everyone needs to be able to participate in that. And as I said, I think if industry can have a mature conversation about how that can work and how it can be applied simply, I think having a win-win solution for all parties. I feel personally it's doable, but it's got to have some way to bring everybody together and have that conversation.
Look, and I think as a small independent workshop, who I believe is semi-reasonable in thought process, like I totally understand the aspect of them trying to secure and protect their IP and their efforts and the money that has gone into the technology. That I totally understand that. And I would also, as an independent, small size workshop, would also have no problem paying for the rights to that access. I never at all have ever expected this stuff to be free. I think that at some point when we are starting to talk about IPs and it's something that corporations probably spend billions of dollars to grow and evolve and build, I don't think it should be free to us as independents. I think we should pay something but gain a level playing field for that. right?
Yeah.
If they're going to tell us that, look, you can access all your, they would know from the telematics where the cars are. These are local area, Volkswagens, whatever. If you want access to that, it's, whatever it is a month, X amount a month, get you access to this, or even your own customer base, enter your VIN and that's your car. If there's options like that, I think most workshop owners are quite reasonable and they understand that things cost money. So generally they're fine.
I'm going to say, I think there's a win-win for manufacturers and us. And I think that's been sort of that's been conveyed in the UK, where it's been in it's in manufacturers, the vehicle manufacturers' interest for people to have a good experience of owning the car. Now, if the car is difficult to repair, 100%. and if a car is difficult to repair and no one but the dealer can repair it, or no one but a specialist technician can repair it, then people go, bugger that, I'm never owning another one of those.
Well, isn't that what happened in the States with GM?
That was the start of why J2534 exists in the US, because they were like us, like a lot of mechanics in Australia would say Toyota because they're easy to fix. When your customers ask you for a recommendation, I would say 90% of the guys on the garage network would be saying to their friends and family, buy a Toyota. They're really easy to fix. They're cheap to repair. They last 1 million Ks. And I mean, they even run in their own advertising campaign at the moment. But we have said that. And that drives the brand. And I think that's why
100%.
And that drives people back to buying it. I mean, I've had plenty of people come in, a few recently, and gone, got to get rid of this car because it's X, Y, and Z, and it's too expensive to repair, and it's doing my head in because it's just too expensive and it's costing me a fortune. And it's this European brand, and it's like, well, that they can be a bit like that. You can be lucky, you can be unlucky, and it just is what it is. And they are difficult to repair and they are expensive to repair. So I think that we
can't access the software no matter how many times you load it and unload it on your computer.
Oh, no, it's not that one. This one starts with V and ends in O.
Yeah.
But a lot of, and I think, but I do believe like VW, especially in the UK, have realised that they actually can't deal with, they don't have enough service agents and enough techs within the UK to service all of their cars that are on the road. So they know that they need us. And they know that from us, they get sales. I mean, obviously, Australia's this is like talking about America and Australia, or Europe and Australia. You're talking, we're 25 million people and about 40 million cars or whatever we might have, or 30 million cars. We don't always have, we're not as dense a market. We're not as big. There's a lot of technicians, So when you get to the UK and you've got, I don't know, how many million people in the UK? 100 million?
80 maybe?
80 million or 100, close to 100. So they're like 4 times the size.
Jeff would know.
Crammed into the size of New South Wales. I mean, it's like it's a ridiculously dense market and a hell of a lot of cars, and so it changes the dynamic. But the reality is, at the end of the day, if we can keep these cars on the road for longer and people have a better experience, then they will go back and buy that brand for a second round or a third time, and that's the proof is in sales. And I think that if once the OEMs realize that, I think it's a game changer. And I think that we need to work together. And I think that the time for sensible conversation is now. And I also don't believe every mechanical workshop in Australia has the ability to have a sensible conversation. Some people are just, like Costa said, some people don't want to pay for it. They don't do the job right, and they probably shouldn't be a licensed motor vehicle repairer. They shouldn't be doing that. And I think that we've got some monkeys we need to get out of the trade. I think that's what really needs to happen at the end.
And I guess, you guys have been in the automotive industry for a while, and I guess on, both sides of the fence, there's probably some misconceptions of different opinions, and it's not always so black and white. It's not, always a shade of grey or that. And I think that, and here I say the same for the OEMs. They have certain opinions, or some might have opinions, but about certain things which may also not be right. But I really feel that, probably we're not too far away from having those conversations. I think there is a willingness to now solve a few of these gaps that we have in that legislation. So anyway, well,
That's awesome.
Well, it's
maybe time for a chat over a couple more beers for some brainstorming on that one.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. All right.
All right.
So now we're going to move on to something that I'm not too familiar with. So I think Mike's probably more familiar with connected repair than I am. Probably, I'm sure, John, I'm sure you are as well. So I might actually pass this one on to you guys. Well, you know what? Actually, I'll be the dummy in the conversation. So what is connected repair? Anyone of you two want to answer this question?
Mike, you want to talk, or you want me to?
I don't mind. I can give you my perspective of connected repair. And John, you correct me if I'm wrong. It's how we connect. We're going to connect various pieces of equipment to your together and to your invoicing program. And I guess, is it only with Mechanic Desk, or is it with something else as well? Or is it?
So it is at the moment with Mechanic Desk. I think it's actually just been pushed out, actually, Mike. I think we've even contacted you to have an update on that one. But at the moment, we have Bosch Connected Repair is how I'd describe it. It's a piece of, we call it middleware. So it sits on the top of your computer screen, and it can work in a couple of different ways. It can work as a standalone piece of software. So you can put in your customer and you say, okay, I've got to do a diagnostic scan on that, or maybe it's a aircon recharge. And when you select, so it's like having a digital repair order or job sheet. And when you click on diagnostic scan, it will actually open up our KTS software. It will pre-populate it with the details because you've already selected the vehicle. It will do its scan. And at the end of it, the report will sync back to that piece of software. Same as if you did a aircon recharge and you've got a report of confirmation from that, it would then sync that back to your piece of into that connected repair. So the idea is that, Joe blogs, he's got his Toyota Corolla, and there you can see that report. And of course, over time, you collect more of that data. And you go, well, that's nice. I guess that's a standalone version. The next level of that is where you have that connected to your workshop management system. So I guess when you start your custom, we call it customer journey, but you book your customer in. So Joe blogs, you put them into Mechanic Desk, Mike. You say, yep, okay, we've got it's got to have a logbook service or whatever it is. You put that in there. And basically that pushes it to your computer. You got out in the workshop, so you don't have to enter that data again. You just see your list of jobs and vehicles. You select the one you want, and away you go. And when it saves after the job's done, it'll actually push that right back into your workshop management system. So that's the idea of our connected repair. So it's connecting your workshop management system right through to the different devices in your workshop that are enabled. So at the moment, we've got our diagnostics, we've got ADAS, we've got aircon units. We've got a couple of other things. We've got our FSA 050, which is installation test. We've got a scope. So we've got a few different items, and also there's some non-Bosch products, which were part of the Bosch family, but not anymore. So bath equipment, for example. So that's the concept behind the connected repair. And I guess for certain industries, so if you're doing ADAS calibration in collision or auto glass, having a proof of the calibration with all the different settings, and that's also very important for the insurance companies who want to have, auditability on, the job was done correctly, who was the tech, what was the setup, all that sort of stuff. Because, touch wood, we haven't had an incident, but, it's a bit like if a plane crashes, some investigator will come out and go, okay, who did what? let's look at the evidence. And if you're the poor guy going, well, yeah, I think I did it right. I haven't got any evidence, but yeah. And
you don't need it till you need it.
Crash investigator said, oh, that might have been a contributing factor to the accident. Not necessarily the cause, but a contributing factor. Could be a rather awkward situation. So
I think for us, even not at a lower level, it's really important. It's really important for us to have a record of we scan every car as part of a service, and we save that, and that having that being able to be saved back to the actual invoice and recorded on the customer's database within our management system is really, really important. Again, with air conditioning, we might have regassed someone's air conditioning. We've done a repair, and we know, and the car came in and it had gas in it, or it didn't have much gas in it. We've tested it. We couldn't find a leak. We've gassed it again. We know we have a record of everything that we've done all the way through, and it saves it rather than having those things saved on multiple devices where you've got to go back and look them up. Or in the case of most air conditioning machines, printed on a thermal imaging printer that would last, 20 minutes, unless someone's and the time, or last 20 minutes, last 2 weeks, or left in the sun, it's gone. But we would re-enter that information, and having staff who do all of that for me and doing that data entry, this saves so much time. So to be able to push it to the AC machine, receive it back from the AC machine once the job's completed, and it saves all of that. And it's more about, again, for us, you don't need it until you need it, and it's about record keeping and having someone. I've had a couple of customers more recently. Oh, you serviced my car 3 months ago. I've got this check engine light on. Our ability to be able to go back and look at what the scan was when we did the service and what the error codes were. Yep. And it's like, especially when you're over the phone and you don't know who they are, and you can look it up very, very quickly and go, oh yeah, we spoke about this. This is the car that had X, Y, Z. And we know that you're going to need a throttle body. We told you that it needed that it needed a set of spark plugs, and there were misfire codes, and this is, it's really good to have that conversation, and to be able to put your hand on that really, really quickly is really, really good.
Yeah, I think there's some other things in that app. So we've got it's called a embedded picture app. So you can also sit there and take photos of, if you're going to have when a vehicle arrives and you want to just make sure that it's got a scratch down the side, that someone say, I wasn't there before. So you can easily take some photos, or if you happen to observe something, you say, well, gee, that looks pretty, CV joint stuffed. I'm going to ping him a photo to show, hey, this is what the damage is. So it's got some other things which are also embedded in that, and you can put notes and stuff like that. So yeah, that solution I see for the future will become definitely more important. And I guess as technology evolves, there's probably different use cases that can also be applied for that if you want to go into a more of an advanced approach. But certainly to start with, having good record keeping and being able to also provide certain information to the customer or reflect back to that, I think is pretty important.
So can I just get this right? Mike? So let's say a car's come in, you've serviced it, you realise it needs tyres, you put your tyres on that car, you can then drive it onto your wheel alignment machine, do your alignment, and you just keep saving all that information onto that file?
Back onto the invoice. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Excellent.
So I guess when I said about the integration, I have to be maybe a little bit specific because I don't want to mislead anybody. So we have an integration where, like with our KTS, it'll actually open up the scan tool with the software that easy pre-populate it, and it will sync it back. So because I know that you guys in workshop, you have other tools which are not Bosch or Bias Bath. Yeah. You can always take your report and just edit. So you might print your report out, and because it sits up the top of any Windows device, it just sits up the top of the screen. So the idea in your workshop, every tech, if they've got a computer, they can see all jobs in the workshop, and if they happen to have another brand of wheel line or whatever, and they've got a report, they can just go into that Corolla and say, yep, I'm just going to attach the report here, and it will do the same thing. So we just, because there's so much variety of different tools, you can't integrate everything, but we have the ability that you can add, those reports.
We manually add. So same for example, with our brake test. So we could, am I going to, John, can I explain the safety stop?
Sure.
So we do the same with the safety stop. So we do a safety stop test, and it's saved as a PDF. We can just drag the PDF straight into connected repair, and it just gets added to the job. Yeah, cool. Rather than being saved on that safety stop machine, and you've got to go back and look for it. You can then find it attached with that invoice in the back, pre-populated into the back end of our management system, and you're able to access it. And then it also, what it does, it gives us the ability to track jobs.
Yeah, of course.
Workshop, because you can see where things are.
What do we do on that car again? Bang, bang, it's all there.
Well, yeah, it's like that, but it's also like Lee in the office can then watch and know that's been done, rather than go to, in our case, we have little drawers where we everything would get printed separately, and you used to have to go to the drawer and you'd have to go through and make, have we got the safety stop report? Have we got a scan? Have we got this? And they're all printed, but they're saved on 5 different computers all around the shop. This brings them all together and saves them to the cloud within our management system. And it's just, to me, it was like a no-brainer for tracking and the ability to be able to do stuff for customers. It just makes it, I believe it makes you way more compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and look, and you let the cat out of the bag there, Mike, with our partner Mechanic Distance, we are still, I wouldn't say we're in, beta testing. I think we're far more advanced than that. But I guess the part is that, it's included for free in our advanced version of our ESI. So it is available, but it's not just a case of, hey, I just flick the switch and it all happens, right? So because as you know, in a workshop environment with IT, Costa, it's not always straight sailing, plain sailing. So there is a little bit of setup, and you've got to have some prerequisites. So, for one thing, for example, at the moment, we don't support Windows 11. So we support Windows 10, but if you've got the latest whiz-bang, Windows 11 might be a problem. Likewise, if you've got Windows Me, that's a long time ago, you're going to be frustrated. Okay. So, there is some things and we need to be, we've got a little bit more work on how we enable that setup so people have a seamless experience. So, look, you can have a crack, but don't ring the hotline and go, oh, mate, this is not working, whatever it is. So, anybody that's considering that, just hold off, and we will share some information to have a seamless experience on anyone that wants to use that. So
yeah, watch this space. I'll let you know when it's all working beautifully.
Look, John, since Mike let the cat at the bag go on, what's the solutions, mate?
I'm already just taking down his phone number and just on speed dial. Ring Mike. He's the expert in case you get queries.
You know what? We can put in the comment section below so everyone can actually access it.
No. But sorry, John, Costa hasn't told you. If you got a secret, you tell me. I tell everyone. And
tell Mike your secret.
Awesome.
I solve I solve the world's problems.
It's no longer a secret, right? So just get it out there.
It relieves the stress.
Worry about the aftermath later.
Yeah. It's normally in the morning after 12 beers. Like, oh, did I actually say that?
So what is it? Seeking forgiveness is better than asking for permission.
Yeah, asking for forgiveness is easier than asking for permission. Yeah, permission. Exactly right.
Great stuff.
But John, you could tell me secrets. I won't tell anyone. Go on.
Well, I think, and I know we talked about certain topics, but because EVs are so much the flavour of the day at the moment. It's depending on who you listen to. And I did happen to listen to, it was one of the recent podcasts about, what's the future and EVs. And, I've got a slightly different perspective. I don't know if you guys want to hear that, just for the sake of conversation. But I think there's lots of studies and there's lots of saber rattling by different councils and association who might have, their own particular path that they're headed down. I guess from my view, what I see the future of EVs is that there's certainly going to be EVs in the market. And I think that in the inner metro of the large cities, so Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, you're going to find a greater concentration of EVs than in the outer areas. And that's due to two factors. One, the socio-economic, how much coin these guys have got, and also the driving pattern. The guy's got his Land Cruiser today and he goes, a couple of 100 kilometres. He's probably might have a bit of range anxiety or just doesn't feel comfortable with that solution, at least not at the moment. So I think that, and there's so many studies out there, but there's one particular study. It's actually from KPMG, and they predicted in 2030 that I can quote two suburbs, and you'll know better than I am because they're both in Sydney. So in Neutral Bay, they estimated around 25% of the vehicle park will be an EV. So of all the vehicles in Neutral Bay, whatever postcode that is, 25% are going to be EVs in 2030. If you go out to Fairfield, what do you reckon the number's going to be? How many percent?
2.
5.
Oh, Costa, 2%.
Yeah,
that's what they estimated. So you can see that there's going to be a wide variety, and of course those numbers are just a prediction, and there's so many factors that could influence that. I think the big factors are supply of EVs. There's, certainly from the battery pack manufacturers, there's not just an abundance of free battery packs that, and it's the OEMs that are holding it up, or there's government regulation. I think in the supply chain there are many challenges, and of course, the consumer adoption, and you've got government incentives, and there's a whole rich range of topics. So I think, long story short, the internal combustion engine and for independent repairs is going to be the overwhelming amount of business for many, many years to come. And depending on where you are based, if you've got your workshop in Neutral Bay, then you probably need to be far more prepared than, your mate out in Fairfield. He's probably, down the pub going, you suckers having to worry about those. I'm sweet out here. I leave it to some, the 2%. You can go to the 2%er up the road. So I think it's going to be different depending on the geography, and but nonetheless, it's an exciting change in the industry. And again, there can be many other things that come along. There's a few wild cards. Hydrogen, I think, my opinion, you're probably going to see that in trucks on point to point, where you might have some dedicated refilling infrastructure, maybe even the generation of that at those sites. I think for passenger cars, probably going to be a longer time in the distance if it happens, purely because of the cost of hydrogen, the infrastructure that's involved. That's just not so easy. So
what about synthetic fuels, John? You seen any of that?
There's also a possibility. I think that's the thing in the automotive industry. There's a lot of innovation that goes on in the background, and every manufacturer or component supplier is constantly investing and trying to find solutions for zero emission, or and how you achieve that. Because I guess at the end of the day, that's the objective, is to go for zero emission. How you achieve that in the most cost-effective way, I guess that's the big challenge.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they say you've got to reach carbon, you've got to reach zero emission. How do you get zero emission? I was really interested. I don't know if you heard, we were talking about the Porsche's investment into synthetic fuels and that made the Europeans they put internal combustion engines back on the market or on the cards after 2035. Wow. 2030.
Yeah.
Which to me that's a game changer for us. I think the EV councils, that they have a lot of power, whether they're here in Australia or whether they're over in Europe. They've really driven a electric vehicle hardline to the government and to whoever makes the decisions about what happens with internal combustion engines, and they left them with no choice. But this gives us a choice. So this is interesting.
And I guess that, that's a bit of a political debate. I'm not a politician, don't want to be a politician, but I think it's an interesting conversation. But nonetheless, I guess when it comes back to workshops and what's the future for a workshop, I think it's not doom and gloom. You hear some people that go, "Oh, this is the end. It's it's no more filter sales and all oil. That's going to be the end of the world." I think that actually it's probably going to be quite the opposite, and I think that maybe even some people don't contemplate what that might mean for their businesses going forward in the future. So, as a couple of examples, and you guys might already know this, but thermal management will become a far more important topic. So air conditioning, for example, good thermal management is going to be important for your battery life. And even though people say, the new battery technology, you don't have to worry about, batteries are going to do 1 million miles, etc. Well, maybe that might come along, but it's not right at the moment. And thermal management will be, I think, a very important topic. So that will be, a change in air conditioning work that you do, as an example. Tires, interesting. So you probably know that EVs are a lot heavier. So there's an EV that's about to hit the market later this year. I won't mention the brand. And that's going to weigh about 2.4 ton for this SUV.
Wow.
And
that's a heavy car.
That's a heavy car.
Yeah. And so if I asked you, the front, one of the wheels, and the wheel including the rim, what's the average weight on a big SUV that you might have today? Not one of those big American ones, but just a normal size SUV. How much?
25 kilo.
20. Yeah. So you can manual handling, no problem, right? Yeah.
An alloy, something like that, I reckon.
What do you reckon the wheel weight on this one might be?
I'm going to hope lighter, but the way you're saying it, I feel like I'm wrong.
Maybe just under 40.
Wow.
40 kilos.
That's a 2% job.
What's so heavy? Is the tire heavy or the rim heavy? What have they done? Are they doing?
Well, if you look at the wheel rim, you'd then go, "Gee, it looks pretty meaty." I don't know the reason why, but I guess there's a lot of things that I was amazed. I thought, wow, didn't know that, and there are some reasons for that, but there will be different challenges with EV. So tires wearing out, that's going to be great, but it will also bring some challenges. So you have to have the apprentice helping you, or you get some sort of lift.
That's a heavy wheel. Oh, that's a heavy wheel. I don't think.
Is it a 4-wheel drive, John?
SUV.
I think you can have it as a 2 or 4-wheel.
It's like it is an SUV. I'm wondering, are they doing that to get?
Well, you got to remember it's a heavier vehicle, so you're going to dare say the wheel will be made to a spec to carry the weight as well. So I mean, you need.
Well, I said it's 2.4 ton.
You need meat there to carry.
It's a big unit.
Carry the weight.
No, I'm actually more wondering whether they've done something like that because of the. As a flywheel, was it flywheels type option?
Maybe as a weight.
For momentum.
Yeah.
There's something that when you're spinning a disc like that, obviously you look at
it's rolling momentum.
Look at EVs and you look at the iconic the Hyundai. We had one of those to repair a battery. It was like 2 weeks old. I got some mad photos. I was sharing on the network. We got some great photos of that. Nothing, just a basically a motor where the diff is. It's just and a battery, and you just go, it was just we were repairing a tire. We had to replace the tire. So you got a nail in the tire. It was like a week old. So we had it on the hoist, and I went over the whole car, pulled the covers off. I was like, I'm going to have a look at this. I need to. It was great. So,
and I heard you say that you had to repair the battery, but it was the tyre, not the battery.
No. I had to repair the tyre, we repaired the tyre. And then we had, and because they're like the Tesla tyres, which we've done a few times, where they got the foam insulation inside for noise. So you got to cut out that foam, and we were able to repair the tyre. We didn't have to replace it for him, but
yeah. And look, I think when it comes to the battery, I think that look, the battery life is going to be longer, but there are certain things that can definitely degrade the life of the battery depending on how you use it and the technology of that battery and temperature, a whole range of things, and how many kilometers. So you probably know some Uber drivers and here I might talk about a hybrid. Some of the vehicles, those do a huge amount of kilometers, and they've probably been around the longest. I think what you'll see in the future that you're going to have, independent workshops will have the ability to, there'll be aftermarket repair solutions for some of those technology. Maybe not everything right away, but aftermarket's pretty innovative, and I'm pretty sure that there will be a range of solutions where people go, that would be just impossible to do, can't do that. I have to send it somewhere for a central reman and, the world's going to be over. But I think that as, volumes increase and, there's solutions for that, you'll see more and more of that trickle through. So anybody's think that's the end of the line because EVs and hybrids are coming, I'd say look at it as an opportunity, but it's going to be different from what you do today. And yep, you're going to have to prepare yourself for that. Probably going to be a lot more diagnosis, and you're going to have a lot of other electronic systems and different types of work, health checks and different from what you do today. But I think that's definitely not the end of the line at all.
Well, I think as well, specifically on that, I think that the biggest thing that people aren't looking at is as the ones that don't want to evolve leave the industry, and we do have a sort of shortage of techs already. Like most workshops, I dare say, are quite busy. Manufacturers are weeks away before you can get any cars in. I mean, all that does is hopefully supply and demand generally dictates price goes up when the supply is lower than the demand. So, I mean, it's a good opportunity where we can get some really clever guys getting paid really well, workshops going to generate a lot more income. So, yes, maybe there's less work on them, but at the end of the day, it's going to be more specialized. There is no reason why we can't charge more for it. So I think the outcome is we're probably going to be doing nicer work, but getting paid more for it. In my opinion, that's why I'm very optimistic in the next 10, 15 years. I'm all for whatever the changes are going to be. They're going to be cleaner work. It's going to be work that is different and work that is going to be probably more profitable, realistically.
Yeah, I think it's got to roll with the punches. I think there's going to be, they all need brakes, they all need tyres, they all need air filters, they need wipers, they need windscreens, they need switches, they need handles, they got door handles.
At some point, they're going to need motors, they're going to need some sort of gearbox. Yep. This is still going to happen. Things break.
Yep. And I think that's, and I guess at the same time, and if we get people that leave the industry because they don't want to evolve and they don't want to change, we're getting less opportunity for people to actually, and I know this sounds awful, but you've got this situation where it's really difficult in Sydney right now to find a shop. And you can't.
Tell me about it. Just been in the last year trying to look for one in the right location. That'll house us long term at least.
Yeah, so it's really, really difficult to find. Well, no, it's difficult to lease a shop without a demo clause. Where someone's going to turn it into a block of 28 units or 28 stories high units, sorry, I should say, at some point in the not too distant future, where you can actually relax and actually focus on setting up a business. You're not there like, oh man, I'm here for a short time. I just got to make as much money as I can, or I've got to, and I can't invest in. You don't want to over invest in anything within your workshop, like whether that's solar, whether that's, I don't know, within people, within culture, within anything, like you're just trying to you just feel. I think I mean I'm lucky that we own, our family own the site, and that I don't have that sort of issue. But I can only imagine what it's like on the flip side of that, where it just would be very, very stressful. So
yeah, I think the other challenges, and I think you guys touched on it, is about techs, and I guess even more importantly, I've got a couple of teenage boys, and for the younger generation, the attractiveness to join the automotive industry, like I was highly enthusiastic when I started my apprenticeship, but things have changed. It's a pretty competitive marketplace for school leavers. What are they going to do? And part of that is monetary. How much coin am I going to earn in a few years? And I think that's one of the challenges. Also, as a business, how do you, make a certain, decent return, pay good salary for your staff? And I think a big part of that comes down to, productivity, efficiency, and being able to charge what the job's worth, but at the same time being able to do that as quickly as possible. It's not always the simplest equation, but it's a challenging situation, certainly, I guess, for the younger intake.
Yeah, I think the on the plus side of that, I think what's really interesting at the moment is with, like all trades, we're in a pretty good situation to pay you pretty good money straight out of school. And I think that we've created because of some of the things that, some of our history in the industry. I think that some of the not our generation, Costa, well, your generation below me, but probably not my generation, but a generation above me has probably created. I don't think they've charged enough. I don't think they've really been able to they've never really
stigma
understood.
Of the greasy workshop down there that will just change my lights for free.
Yeah, or they just haven't been able to. They've been good mechanics. They've been good techs. They haven't necessarily been good business people. So that means they didn't probably understand what they were doing when they were doing things for nothing, or when they were doing, or they just wouldn't. Well, they weren't charging for things properly, and I just don't think that left us with a good legacy within the industry of really being able to understand what to charge and how to charge, and I think that and that's shown with the disparity between us and dealerships. Like if I rang a local dealership, they're at nearly $120 more per hour than what we are. Now, I'm not saying that they're charging right, and not saying that we're charging wrong, but I think that there's a big difference, and that change is probably what drives a lot of customers our way. And we're a healthy business. I'm not, there's profit's it's not a rude word, but we're a healthy business. I pay my techs well. We don't, I own a boat. We do okay. I'm not gonna, but I'm not gonna, my kids don't want for anything. We're doing okay, but at the end of the day, I think it's a good industry. Do I want it for my children? I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but I guess there's a lot of uncertainty in every part of the world. Like, is AI going to change the way lawyers are? Are people going to go to AI to get law advice in the next 5 years? There's lots of, and I think we're really good at adapting, and we're really good at changing. I think there's lots of other industries that are about to be hit with various changes and various things that like the reason that we currently have a writers' strike going on in America is because artificial intelligence can write stories, and they can write storylines.
Pretty damn good ones, yeah.
So right, so there's a really good industry that's never ever in the history of the world ever had to compete with anything, but right now they have to compete with something. They need to change. They need to do something that AI can't do. Right. So we're lucky that we have certainty by having uncertainty. There are lots of industries that are just hoping that they just continue to have certainty. So I think that I think the world's consistently and continually evolving, and I think that maybe we're lucky. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, what have I got myself into as an industry? But other times it's like you look at it and you go, well, maybe all of this is training for the greater good. You get used to it.
Yeah. I think it's so dynamic, and it's always exciting. There's such new technology coming along, and other challenges. Every day is pretty exciting for me. So, and constantly learning. That's always interesting. That's not just technology, but I look through the pages in the TGN. I go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that, and what's going on there, and I guess different people have different perspectives, and sometimes you don't see that. I guess that's one of the good things about social media. And I'm not an avid user of social media myself, but I can see that there's some good things and good platforms on how people can share their views. And sometimes there might be some ones that are off the reservation, but I guess that's just the nature of the beast. So, but in general, I think that's. The land that we kind of live in, and nonetheless, pretty exciting. And I think EVs or whatever else is going to come along, that's just another new challenge and great opportunity. So
take it with both hands and run.
You know what they say: evolve or die.
Exactly.
Or dinosaurs.
Exactly. You should know. You were around when they were there.
Oh.
Don't open those doors, mate. I'll take it every time.
Don't forget to join our private Facebook page if you are an automotive technician, and also subscribe to our YouTube and our podcast channel. They are all called The Garage Network. Thanks, guys, and see you next time.